This is the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast, episode 58.
Welcome to the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast with Ken Countess. Ken is an internationally recognized marketing expert. This podcast will give you tips on how to market your business more effectively than ever before to help you make more money, whether you're just starting out or have been in business for years. And now, here's Ken Countess.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast. And I'm Ken Countess. And today we've got a really special guest. My guest is Simone Vincenze. Simone, if you're watching this on YouTube, he's in London. I'm in Orlando, as those of you who listen to the podcast know. And I'm just totally delighted. We had a few minutes to chat and get to know each other a bit before starting the recording, and this will be a real treat. So I'm glad you're listening. By the way, we're recording this at about the middle of October 2018. So if we have any reference to holiday stuff, you'll understand why. So today's topic is how to make big sales from a small list while building a strong relationship with your potential clients. Simone, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. It is an absolute pleasure to be here on the show with you.
Thank you. Well, Simone is a host of a podcast. He's got the Explode Your Coaching business show, and he's been featured in more than 100 podcasts. He's been on Sky TV, the Huffington Post. Simone has shared the stage with Les Brown and Gary Vee and John DeMartini and many more. And here's something notable. He was awarded as Best Speaker of the Year in 2016 and one of the most influential migrant entrepreneurs in UK's House of Parliament. Wow. What a track record. It's amazing. I'm delighted that you're here. Oh, and I left out that I don't think I mentioned he's been on TEDx and heard on the radio, and he's been heard on other podcasts like EOF, Entrepreneurs on Fire, featured in Entrepreneur Magazine and Forbes. Oh, that's all the time we have. So
yeah, exactly. As you can see, I'm a bit of a show off. I like to be everywhere.
Well, you got to be everywhere, and you know what? It's when you are as good as you are and you're in demand, you deserve all the recognition.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's talk about how you make big sales from a small list and build relationships with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with a bit of background first, so we can put the teaching into context.
Sure.
When I started GTEx, which was 5 years ago at the time we are recording this interview, I didn't have any money because I came from my catering job, which was in managing Micheline Star restaurants. And I then decided to, cut the bridges and start immediately my entrepreneurial journey. Now, no one told me that it was going to take much longer than I thought. So the savings very quickly ran out. And I found myself to a place where I ended up being homeless for a few months. And then I went back into employment to just have enough to cover my rent. And so when we started GTEx, which was my second company, because the first one failed miserably, literally me and my business partner had £100 each. And after an afternoon and creating the logo and the website and everything, there was not much left. Now, why I'm saying this, it is because we didn't have then any money for paid advertisement. Now, if you want to grow a list, if you want to build a customer database, the easier and faster route is paid advertisement.
Right.
You pay, you get people opting in, build the list, easy, right?
Right.
But if the capital is missing, then you need to be a bit more creative in the process. And so because we were building very few customers at the time, then I needed to become really good at converting those customers. Because otherwise there was no food on the table, there was no rent. And so that's why for me, conversion became the most important factor, over even more important than audience growth.
Right.
That's why I became a bit obsessed. Let's start talking about how we started building a bit that list, shall we?
Yes, please.
I found that depending on every industry is different. In the industry that I'm still in, which is the personal development, the business development industry, business consulting, training industry, speaking industry, there is no better way for me to building a list than speaking at other people's events or creating their own events. Now, there is a reason why. It's more difficult and it takes longer because, for getting someone to come to an event, it needs to be very motivated. It's not someone that just sees something online and then says, "Oh, you know what? Ken, what is something you're interested in, Ken? What is something that you like?"
Let's take sports.
Sport. Any particular kind of sport?
Baseball. It's World Series time here in the U.S. So
Right.
let's talk baseball.
So maybe there is an ad which is coming in and says, "Hey Ken, I know you're interested in baseball. Click here to win the baseball cap of your favorite team."
Right.
It's like, okay, well, you know what? I might put my details in.
You've got my interest, right?
I got your interest, but are you the kind of motivated? It doesn't tell me really that you're really interested in buying something.
Right.
While when you are going physically to an event, it shows that, first of all, you're willing to kind of lift your ass from the couch and actually go somewhere, which then means your level of interest is higher, and also is involved transport, location. So there are so many more factors involved that makes those people that actually physically attend somewhere way more qualified than any other audience that I can pick up online.
Right. Sure.
And so what I did, I decided to start speaking at other people's events, and then in a smaller way, starting my own events where I was inviting a few other speakers. They were promoting it, and I was doing it every month.
Right.
And I've been doing it now monthly without missing a month for the past 5 years regularly.
Awesome.
And we started from 4 people, 10 people, 20 people, 25, then going back to 4 people. After we got hundreds of people. And for us, that was the biggest list building exercise that we did.
I think an important point here, which you said, is it's okay to start small. You've got to start somewhere. The biggest companies in the world didn't start out that way. They started small. I think that's a very important point that you raise.
Yes, exactly. Because I remember I love podcasts. As a podcaster myself, I love listening also to podcasts. And one of my favorite is Masters of Scale. I don't know if you listen to it as well. It's a great podcast, and they were interviewing the founder of Airbnb, one of the co-founders of Airbnb, and he mentioned something that I think is very important for any business, which is do what's not scalable. And then scale it up.
Oh, okay. I'll have to listen to that one. I haven't heard that one yet.
So do what's not scalable first. And that means starting small, talking to people. And I have to say that the conversation that I had with people, they were my market research. They were the biggest, they were even more valuable than a client giving me money, because they were giving me information that I'm using over and over and over and over again.
Right. To
build the perfect profile of the ideal client, and also help me test. You don't want to test an idea where you have a lot to lose.
Right. So you've you're creating an audience, a tribe, and using the data from your audience to continue to grow the audience, because you're learning what gets people captivated, and then marketing to more people like that. Do I have that right?
Exactly, absolutely. And that goes back to one of the best business advice I've ever received. While I was building the business, I was also working part-time in an organic food shop. It was a plant shop, an organic food shop. And I helped that company expand from, because we were talking with the owner, we became really good friends, and I was in business, he was in business. So we could brainstorm, and I helped that company growing from £120,000 a year to 800,000 a year. And because I was good at talking to people. He didn't know much English. So I was going out and negotiating deals for him. And from one shop, we opened 3 shops, a restaurant and a pub. And he told me one thing, and observing him was one of the biggest learning I've ever had, which was build your community first, and then your community will build your business.
Right. That's great.
Now,
great advice.
He wasn't talking about online communities because he doesn't know much. He's in his 60s, a Hungarian guy, very old school, big mustache. But what he was great at is to make people feel welcome and getting people coming to him and creating festivals and events in the local area for people to come in. And that's, I guess, why also I decided to adopt it to and start my own business as well.
Right. No, that's great. You know, I think so many people lose sight of the fact that people do business with people. And so cultivating a relationship is super important. And then when people are very satisfied with the experience that they received from you or your business, they'll refer you on to other people, which helps you build your community or your tribe.
Exactly. And it's a lot of work. It's not easy. That's why not.
It is work.
Because you're spending a lot of time for no money at all at the beginning, or very little money.
Yeah.
But then you arrive to a tipping point where then the cash starts flooding in, because you've built so much relationship, and we were able to build so much relationship trust that they were knowing us, they were liking us, they were trusting us.
Right.
So then when we said, hey, based on the conversation that we had together, you guys are interested in X, Y, and Z. This is what we have created for you. Do you want to jump on board?
Right.
And then we had a lot of people that said, yes, count me in, count me in, count me in. And that was the first time we said, wow, we actually have a business right now. It's not a charity anymore.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it, if you don't mind. I'd like to build on this notion of events.
Yes.
I, for several years running, have personally run anywhere between 100 and 150 events a year. This year, I'm slowing down a bit.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I'm trying to keep up with you. But so this year, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 80, and many of them are online, but quite a number of them are on site also. And I have been involved with companies in the past where they would have people come in. It would be free of charge, and I would come in as a paid speaker. A lot of people, want to know, well, gee, Ken or Simone, when you get up on stage, you're great at what you do, but how do you start to build that audience? If you create a free event, of course, you'll get a lot of people who are interested in coming to the free event. They aren't necessarily your best prospects. So then one of the strategies is you can charge a fee, right? And that could be nominal. We'll talk dollars or pounds, let's say $30 or pounds.
Yeah.
But how do you determine, and this is for our audience, people who are listening who are saying, gosh, I'd love to be a speaker. I don't know where to start. I can certainly invite some people. How much do I charge when I'm starting out? And where do I begin to scale the entry fee for them to attend?
That's a brilliant question. And, like yourself, I do a lot of events every year, sometimes around 200. So I'm actually very, yeah. And even when you said 150, I know the amount of work which is required, whether it's an online or offline event, right, is a lot of time setting up and on the road to do this.
And then the follow-up afterward.
And then the follow-up afterward, absolutely. And then because now you not only have the follow-up, but then you have immediately to market the other one. So it's a kind of non-stop going on. But going back to where we start, events is a very local business. And you need to be in a place where there are enough people interested to come in first. So not every location is suitable to running a live event in person. If you're living in the countryside, very difficult. If you're living in a city, and in particular a city where they do business, where business is predominant, for example, I live in London, it's awesome. New York, awesome. Orlando, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have other cities which become way more difficult. For example, I had a client in Cleveland that was difficult.
Yeah, I'm
Because
sure.
the mindset, and there was very little support for entrepreneurs in that case. In that case, so first of all, is to have the right location, and then once you have the right location, also is right now the industry is getting so competitive.
Yes.
Because there are way more speakers right now than there were, for example, 10 years ago or 7 years ago, even when I started. For people like me, because of people like me that train other speakers, there are more people that train speakers, so there are more speakers out there. And so it doesn't even matter that you're doing a free event. So now in London, for example, it's very difficult to fill up a free event at the moment because there are so many free events going on that people have a lot of choice, and people will sign up to 3 or 4 free events that they're interested in every day. And then generally on the day or the day before, they will choose which event they will attend if it's free.
Exactly.
So you got to put yourself also in the shoes of the audience. If you were to attend, for you listeners, if you were to attend an event, what kind of events do you attend? And most of the time, you'll find that you will attend an event if you generally know someone, or someone invited you, or you know one of the speakers, or you might know the event organizer, or you have been around that circle.
Yes.
Very few people will just say, oh, this is interesting, let me go.
Right.
There are people that do that, but it's not the majority.
Okay.
So if you're starting out, my recommendation is don't start your own event.
Mm-hmm.
My recommendation is go and find other events where your audience is and speak at those events, build a relationship with the event organizer, speak at this event. Sometimes you will speak for free.
Mm-hmm.
If you are at the very beginning, sometimes you will pay to speak.
Right.
And then they will put you in front of the right people. Mm-hmm. Now, at this point, you can sell something, or you can invite them to your event.
Right.
So the
sort
way
of a
I feel,
backup room sale in the front of the room.
Exactly. So the way I feel a lot of my free events actually is by speaking at other people's event. I will do very little paid advertisement because I know that the profile of the person which I'm interested in is someone that spends time offline, not online.
Right.
So I can find them online, but it's way more expensive and actually costs me cheaper to even pay to speak at a certain event where I'm in front of hundreds or thousands of people that I know they are already interested to actually attend physically an event, and then say, hey, I'm running my event. Right. Come in.
Sure.
And now I can immediately sell a paid event.
I think you bring up a very interesting point. I think a lot of people struggle with this notion of, I prefer to be paid when I speak. And then there are so many situations now where you have to pay to be a speaker. But I think you're totally on point, where if it's the audience that you're looking for, it may very well be less expensive for you to pay to be at that event than to advertise your own event.
Yeah. Exactly. I believe that no. Of course, I will always love to be paid up front.
Of course.
To speak. But not always, because sometimes you get paid up front, but then they don't give you permission to sell.
Right.
Because you get paid your fee. And I make way more money by selling than by getting paid my fee.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Yeah.
So it's a number game, and understanding, okay, if I'm creating my own event, it will cost me X thousand or X hundreds of dollars, depending on the size.
Right.
But then you have the hassle of finding the people, filling the room, managing the event, doing the follow-up. And so it's a process that will take a few months.
Right.
Which definitely costs less than paying $1,000 or $2,000 to speak at someone else's event. But this is my recommendation. So if you're starting out, speak for free at local networking events, build your skills as a speaker, and then pay. Don't start paying from the beginning.
Great.
Because otherwise you're wasting you're wasting money, because you might not be great yet as a speaker. So
yeah, it gives you a chance to hone your craft.
Exactly. I did so many events where in front of like one person or two people, and probably Ken, you've done the same. I'm assuming just to build and to become experienced and to become good at what I do.
Sure. It does take time. It does take time. And you know, for a few people, it's innate, right? They're very comfortable being on a stage. And I'm sure you are very comfortable being in front of a crowd, but not everybody's like that. So I think you're right. Taking an opportunity to speak free just to test it out and just see if it's something that you feel comfortable with. Maybe a chamber of commerce events or business associations or networking events and so on. They're always looking for people who are expert in their field. And what a great place, a good training ground for you if you're not used to being up on the stage.
Absolutely. Exactly. And even when I started, I couldn't even speak English well. And for the first 2.5 years, every presentation I was doing, I had people interrupting me and asking me, can you please repeat? I don't really understand what you said in that point, because I was speaking way too fast with a very strong Italian accent, and I was all over the place, and I was very passionate and but all the presentation was like that. So people at some point were like, what is he on? What is he talking about?
Well, you've certainly overcome that challenge because, you know, your English is perfect.
A lot of practice.
But yeah, well, I'm sure you speak very well in front of an Italian audience too, though.
You know what's funny? All my speaking, the majority, about 99% of my speaking gigs are in English. So when I'm speaking now in Italian, I find it the first few minutes, they are very difficult for me because I'm translating in English in my head and I'm translating them in Italian. It's so weird.
Yeah, I've had that experience myself a couple of times. I used to do a lot of international traveling, and when I was younger, I was able to speak German very well. And what I found when I took a trip to Europe a few years ago, we were in Scandinavia, but we ran across a German family who was actually on the same tour path. And so I was practicing my German for about 2 weeks with them. And I wound up dreaming in German. And so during the day, when I was among other English speakers, I had to translate back. And it was really interesting. What a great, I'm glad you shared that story.
You're welcome.
So let's close out in the next few minutes by talking about, now that you have described a way for people to start to market themselves with a small list, how do they then build that relationship so they're able to convert that the small list to a big list? Number one, we talked a little about that. But then now, how do you make money? Because that's really the end game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, now we have those people. How do we make money?
Yes.
Now that you have built this relationship, they've seen you at an event, can be an online event or an offline event. But if they see you at an offline event, now they have even more relationship because we are human beings. So we respond better when there is no filters between us in terms of the buying process. Now, at this point, then you can sell using different touch points. So you can create your own event at this stage and then sell your product, your services from that event. You can create, like Ken, you said you're doing a lot of online events, and you can now have a touch point online and sell your own courses, training, products, services online. Or then going instead of even going one-to-many, you can build applications and then get people to fill up an application form and book a call with you, and then the sales become one-to-one.
Right.
Now you have these 3 different ways of turning this audience into buyers. So one is an offline event, a live event. One is an online event, and the other one is a conversation one-to-one.
Right.
Depending on where you are, then you will choose which one do you want to use. The more you have, the more chances you will have to increase the conversion, because there are people that will buy better from events. Other people will buy better from online events. Other people will buy better from one-to-one conversations. But you will arrive to a point where you will have all these 3 going on at the same time.
Right.
But at the beginning, just focus on one.
Sure.
And the easiest one to focus on is then becoming good at selling one-to-one. So then do the best you can from then this event or this online or offline event that you're speaking at, then to drive the conversation, say, let's have a chat and let's see how we can work together.
Mm-hmm.
And then get the client from there.
Excellent. Great advice. Simone, this has really been a lot of fun. And I know there are so many other topics that we could cover, and perhaps we'll be able to do that on a future episode.
I would love to.
Sorry?
I would love to.
I'd love to too. This has really been a lot of fun. And I will truly look forward to the next time we chat. Before we go, though, how can people best reach you? This would be your shameless promotion or plug.
Shameless plug. Thank you for asking. There are two places in which you can go, where you can find me. Well, if you're listening to podcasts, I'm assuming you like listening to podcasts. Right. So why don't you jump on our podcast too? So you can find it at Explode Your Expert Biz. So it's Explode Your Expert Biz. You can find it on iTunes, every single platform. And I would love to have you, Ken, as a guest on my show soon. It's been such a pleasure to have this interview with you. So
I'd love to do it.
You will see, if you guys subscribe to our show, you will see also the interview with Ken when we're going to do it. And also the other place where you can find me is you can find all our podcasts and also resources. We have a free resource on making money from selling from the stage, which is a checklist that I've created. Okay. Just go on our website, which is www.gtex, which is gtex.org.uk. So let me repeat it again.
Yeah,
www.gtex.org.uk. And Ken, someone told me to repeat it 3 times, so I'm going to repeat it 3 times, which is www.gtex.org.uk, and you can find all resources there.
Fantastic. Simone Vincenze, it's been a real pleasure having you with me. I do look forward to being on your podcast, and I look forward to having you on another episode of the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast.
That's it for this week's episode. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode and you're a regular listener, even if you're not a regular listener, go ahead and visit us on our Podbean website. That is where we store all of these podcasts. It's marketyourbusiness.podbean, that's podbean.com. And follow us there. Let us know that you really enjoy the podcast by following us. And this way you'll get alerted every time there's a new episode. Thanks for being a listener. We really do appreciate it. And don't forget to tell your friends, too, about the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast. You can find it everywhere. Check out all of our episodes of the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast. It's on our website, marketyourbusiness.co. Look for the podcast tab, and there you'll find all previous episodes. And while you're on our website, don't forget to check out all the other resources and sign up for our weekly newsletter too. Thanks for listening to the Market Your Business Like a Pro podcast with Ken Countess. Be sure to visit marketyourbusiness.co to access show notes, discover our fantastic content, and sign up for our mailing list. Have questions? Send Ken an email, ken@thecountessgroup.com, or Twitter @CountessGroup. See you next time. If you need help with this or anything else related to marketing your business, reach out to us.